Hey everyone, the Potrat here. I'm just gonna talk while the background is playing one of my favorite old videos, at least 7 years old. Man, time flies by fast. First, I like to respond to what people said in my last commentary video, and always feel free to disagree with me, but hopefully in a logical way so I can see if I made any mistakes or it's a different point of view or a misunderstanding. And I never censor comments. If you don't see your comment show up, it means it contains a link which YouTube automatically flags and hide, or you post same comment over and over on different videos. YouTube will basically see it as spam and then hide them automatically. Alright, so my last commentary video is a general video that focuses on reliability and probability of making a living in this industry. In that context and goal, hyperrealism might not be the best choice, broadly speaking. I mentioned there are always outliers. I mentioned I like a lot of art created this way, but I personally prefer the design, which is closer to photography, than the time-consuming rendering process. And I pointed out that it does require skills and effort, and a lot of people love this kind of art. Having said all that, if you look at the data from US Bureau of Labor, which someone pointed out in the video, I never thought about looking up those info actually. Even the job available for art directors almost doubles all fine art and craft art jobs combined. Hyperrealism would be a smaller percentage of the fine art category, so its job opportunity is very small. Now imagine compare that to graphic design and media art, and more specialized but fast growing areas like concept art, interface design, for websites, apps and games and so on. The number gap just gets way too much. So when I say it is more difficult to make a living doing this kind of style, it is a fairly objective statement. I don't think it is an opinion. I'm not trying to crush anyone's dreams, I'm just presenting information and make my recommendation considering the goal of the title. If you feel a strong inspiration to pursue whatever, all power to you. Almost all successful people have to overcome odds that is against them, and we need people who are willing to take the risks. But one of the key words in the title is reliable. And behind every Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates are thousands of people who put everything into their dreams but never make it and never had a voice. So I don't think I'm doing a disservice by focusing on the chance and say you shouldn't do this if you want reliable income. Plus, while I mentioned if you price your art low, you're competing with countries like China and India. If you go for the high-end market, which I didn't touch upon in the previous video, not only it is more difficult, you are not just competing with local or national self-taught artists, you are also competing with art school graduates that comes out in the thousands. And generally they have better connections, and connections is key in almost all industries, especially at the higher end. So can you succeed? Of course, I'm rooting for you. But the video title is under the premise this is not a reliable way to make a living, and I stand by that. Also, you gotta be confident in what you do. If it is your calling, do not be discouraged, even if the chance is not on your side. Alright, as for tracing or using grids or any other method to help you establish the proportions, my answer might surprise you, to those of you who knows me. I actually don't consider that cheating. Even cheating is a subjective thing, like I don't even know what it means in art. Is it cheating when an artist measuring something with a pencil in a traditional live drawing session? Most would say no. What I can say objectively, pretty confidently, is that if tracing or using grids is the only method you know how to draw, it is very limiting. In certain situations, tracing or using grids can save you time, which is sometimes necessary. So I prefer not to think about it as cheating or not cheating, more like does it help you accomplish your specific goal. A beginner can use this method to just focus on learning value and coloring. And sometimes it's not always a bad thing to just, practice and focus on purely tone control or coloring. But because it is relatively easier to get good result this way, there is an inherent danger of a beginner end up totally relying on this method. Leave a comment if this describes you at some point or someone you know. So if that's all you can do, then when you try to draw something like concept art or any situation where this method is not applicable, you realize, oh, I actually cannot do this. I'm missing one of the essential skills in art. My take is generally, why not practice all aspects of drawing at the same time for maximum efficiency? Time is, after all, our most valuable resource. So basically, I don't think of tracing or using grids cheating or not cheating. I just don't think of it that way. I just think of it as limiting, if that is all you are focusing on. And a lot of times a good practice for an artist, especially if they want to make into a higher market, is to look at the world and draw what they see but also what they feel, or by some other principle inject their own style into it. And this process is greatly diminished if you are tracing. You are hindering your refinement of observational skills. So, it's a method and tool that has its benefits and limitations, and you are the one ultimately decide how and what tool you use to create your art. I think the issue is too many people are seduced by its immediate rewards without fully consider its limitations. That's where it becomes a problem. But using any tools in a smart way, it's all good to me. I remember a story of a classmate who, this is from 12 years ago, and I wasn't even thinking about art at the time. This classmate was already doing some really awesome concept art, character design as a job while he studies. He would draw in class, and definitely not art class. And I would see it and talk to him, and he told me how he spent a great deal of time one day designing this character, but then his art director told him to make a bunch of changes, and the deadline is crazy. That's when he decided to scan the image in Photoshop, and he used the scanner in the school. He didn't have his own scanner, and he started doing rest of the drawing digitally. Now, is that cheating? I personally don't think so. I considered using the tools, in this case a scanner and a computer/Photoshop, in a smart way, which in today's case is the norm in creating any kind of concept design. Of course there are still people doing it on paper, but now they are the exception. As for this classmate, of course he can do the sketch from scratch in Photoshop, but why should he, when he can just scan in what he already designed and then make adjustments? The key is what he is doing is not limiting but efficient. So yeah, to recap, this part is my opinion. I don't consider any method like tracing or using grids or using projectors or whatever cheating. However, I would say if it is the only thing you can do, it can be very limiting. And it is very seductive to beginners, so just be careful with that. So what do you guys think? Do you consider it cheating? Leave a comment to let me know what you think and your reasoning. I do try my best to read everybody's comments, especially the first few days. And don't forget to subscribe and ring that bell. Support me on Patreon if you enjoy my material and want more in-depth content. And feel free to suggest future topics for me to talk about. Until next time, cheers!